poverty, an everlasting societal problem with devastating effects around the globe. Falling below the poverty line or a certain level of assets evokes a series of undesired events and results. As a community, this can mean less resources that can take the form of lower education. In turn, this can result in less opportunities that can lead to criminal activities, addiction, poor health, family turmoil, and so on. All of these factors lead into one another, and it can result in a cycle of poverty.
Delmar Boulevard, a single street located in St. Louis, Missouri, doubles as a socioeconomic and racial dividing line. In 1916, during the Jim Crow era, St. Louis passed a residential segregation ordinance. This ordinance stated that if 75% of residents of a neighborhood were of a certain race, no one from a different race was allowed to move in. This ordinance did not stand as it was challenged in court by the NAACP. In response, racial covenants on housing were introduced. These prevented the sale of houses in certain neighborhoods to persons not of the Caucasian race. 70% of the residents south of Delmar have at least a bachelor's degree, while only 10% of the residents north of Delmar have a bachelor's degree. Ferguson is one of 90 independent townships in the county. Its population was 74% white in 1990. Today, its 21,000 residents are more than two-thirds black. The asymmetry can be attributed to the political entrenchment of the remaining white community now in 2016 and low black voter turnout on election days. In segregated yet governmentally unified metro areas, Chicago's, for instance, property taxes on the rich help pay for schools and other services in poor neighborhoods. The city expands outward from there like an old-fashioned ladies' fan, bounded only by the Mississippi River. The east to west stretch of affluence has no collective name, but it divides the St. Louis metro area like the Great Wall of China.
What's been your experience working with low-income students? Have you had any experiences that are super memorable, or is it just more of the same?
My experience working with low-income students is that often don't notice in the beginning anything about a person's particular background. So they show up to class and they do their work just like people with other backgrounds. But as the semester goes on, sometimes you start to see places where their income makes aspects of going to school more challenging. So for instance, one of the privileges of coming from a family with higher income is that you're less likely to have to work your way through school. And so there are times where in my classes I'll assign, well, hey, you got to join this organization and you have to do this work and you have to, get involved in these sorts of ways. And I'll have students come back and say, oh, I can't, like one of my jobs, because I'm working two jobs while I'm at school, intersects with that time. And so certainly with regard to out of class requirements, or when looking for the classes that fit your schedule, the more external work you have to do, the less freedom you have to take the classes that are best for you, and the more you kind of have to make do when making your schedule.
Standpoint theory relates to poverty in education because educators and impoverished students often don't have the same life experiences, so it makes it difficult to connect in the classroom. These students may have a broader view of the world based on employment, housing situations, their parents' life, and prejudice experiences. Therefore, their view on the world will be especially unique when compared to their wealthier peers and teachers. The disconnect they experience makes it harder to engage in the classroom, since often these students have other responsibilities to handle outside of school, some of which their educators may not understand. In a way, only having to be concerned about education is a privilege for students.
Poverty intersects with education in ways that are good and ways that are bad. So oftentimes people who have come from hard situations have really valuable things to contribute. They see society in an interesting way. There's some gritty realities that they've endured, and it allows them to reflect on things like social identity or the way culture interacts with society in a really vivid and powerful way. And so I would say being open to that and creating spaces where we can have those conversations, is something that I strive to do.
Standpoint theory. The most important concept of standpoint theory is that an individual's perspective is shaped by his or her social experiences. People of the same ethnicity or sex may share similar perspectives due to similar life experiences. For example, Mexican female immigrants will have a different perspective on the 2016 election than American white working-class men. Standpoint theory gives voice to marginalized groups because they can challenge the status quo. However, the view of the more dominant group tends to have more power than the perspective of the co-dominant group. So marginalized groups must accommodate their lifestyle to fit in with the dominant culture to survive.
Won't stop.